why get married and what expectations do you bring into it?
The growth one for sure is an expectation. Why get married is hard. And it's probably been something I've thought about more after marriage than I did before. I think there is an element of this is somebody I get to do life with, and assuming you like that person, like I hope that part's exciting. The other part I've learned much more recently that is really the growth piece. I think there is an element of growth that comes with a long-term commitment that you don't necessarily get in other relationships because you are forced to look in the mirror with an intimate partner over time, and it challenges you a lot. So I do think that
I
there's an
totally
opportunity
agree.
there that can be really special and really powerful that I myself am still working through.
Hey, I'm Kim.
And I'm Pancho, and you're listening to Now That You See It, a show that will ruin you for boring conversations forever.
It's about the invisible stuff that shapes how we think and connect, those, oh, wait, what? Moments that change how you perceive the world around you.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another
Hey,
episode. Today we have a guest with us again. Excited to kick off the episode. Kim, I think you invited Jordan. You know Jordan a little bit better than I do. So how do you know Jordan? What's your if you were to introduce Jordan, what would
boy.
you say?
Well, I gotta say, there must be a special German word for the feeling when two people you love who don't know each other are in the same room for the first time, and you're like, oh my God, it's you guys meeting each other. So whatever like sluggish German word it is for that, good luck with those captions. That's that feeling I have, and this is awesome. So I met both of you through the Lumia program. Shout out to them. And the coaching program, training program, which is a wonderful way to meet complex, amazing, deep humans. And speaking of deep, one of the reasons that Jordan and I connected is because I said, when we were coaching together, I said, well, listen, I can coach just about anything, but I love deep topics and particularly like casually deep topics. And I think that that was the phrase that has peppered and colored our relationship since then. And similarly, Pancho, with you, just the casually deep work. And that's why we're all here on this podcast called Now That You See It, because we are deep thinkers and have lots of thoughts about stuff to share with people.
Very smart.
So yeah.
I love this.
Smart and or just deep. We're just gonna share it. Doesn't have to be intelligent or coherent, but here we are on a podcast. As you have a problem with very few barriers to entry, just about any of us could do this. Well, welcome, Jordan. I want to say a little bit about your practice, but then I want to turn it over to you to just at practice, and I'll say a little bit about the topic for today. But I want to turn it over to you to just tell us where this topic came from. But you are a coach, similar to us, doing a lot of just emotional empowerment work. But I also know, and I'll turn it over to you to explain it, but sort of discovering your niche too as you work with folks. And today, I don't know, I think it's part of the just like learning about yourself and how the world is and who people are. You brought us a topic of sort of the how society, how the world values relationships and people in relationships more so than the individuals themselves and the sort of just like the human unit itself more so valuing the relationships over the individual. And you came across that in an interesting viral way. Tell us about that.
Thanks, Kim. Yeah, I remember casually deep being the very first thing that was said during our first coaching session together. And it was just, yeah, a done deal after that.
Sparks flew.
So the relationship versus individual thing, it's funny because I've actually noticed this for a really long time. It's just funny that I posted something very public about it and it's made people very angry. So I had another post recently where I said, yes, I'm married, but I don't recommend it to people.
Yeah, that was a good one. The reviews are in. 1 out of 5 stars. Would not recommend.
The best part was when I originally came up with this idea, I shared it with my spouse, Nathan, and he burst out laughing because he didn't quite get it at first. He was like, "Are you bashing on our marriage right now?" I said, "No." Like, the whole point is I don't think we take the time to actually consider who we are as individuals before we enter into this lifelong commitment, or hopefully lifelong commitment. Um, and throughout the years, so Nathan and I have been together, oh gosh, no, and this is recorded. No, there's pressure. 7 years, 7 years, married 1.5. And throughout the years, as like I've shared my story or we've posted pictures together, I noticed that people always like photos of me with him over something that's just of me. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I mean, I'm out here starting a business or going on these cool trips, visiting friends, just doing awesome stuff, and it will never measure up to these photos of Nathan and I. And so that's when I started to realize, okay, people want to celebrate me in a relationship more than me doing something by myself. And this viral video that has taken off was me identifying that people have liked this wedding picture over a picture of me hiking a glacier on a solo trip to Iceland that I did a couple of years ago. And I think people are getting particularly mad because I used a wedding photo, which in hindsight, what are you gonna do? Um, but yeah, and I'm very thankful that within my relationship, we are both very individual people. So like we'll go on trips solo, we'll go visit friends. We also do stuff together. It just seems to shock people that we also do things on our own. So, and I think in my coaching practice, I'm always about, okay, like what works for you as the individual, not what somebody else is saying or these other systems that are playing a role or influencing the way that you want to live and all everything in your life. It's what do you want? And I think that's how like my coaching also ties into this marriage, relationship, individual topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jordan, do you notice differences in how people react based on their own relationship status or history? What do you
Absolutely.
Spill the tea.
I mean, I do think that there is a sort of welcoming as a couple to another couple, if that makes sense. Like it feels more norm to have a couple's date versus no one wants to be the third wheel. But like I've got friends who will come out and visit and it's the three of us and we have a great time. And one of my friends calls Nathan a brother, because we're all just super close. But that is one thing I notice. It's like couples stay with couples. You don't really venture out.
Mm-hmm. That's what you got your thinking face on, Pancho.
Yeah, I do have my thinking face. I'm just trying to think about whether that's true in my life.
Mm.
And I think part of it is, and when I heard you talk about, wedding photo versus hiking on an Icelandic glacier photo, um, it's kind of like a numbers game to some degree. Most of the people my age who I interact with are coupled off. And there are some people who are still single, but, by and large, people end up in relationships. And so and that as I was thinking that, I was thinking, well, is that actually true? Do I have numbers that I can go to? Or is it just my lived experience? And if it's just my lived experience, is that biased by the fact that I actually fall into this phenomenon where, couples attract couples? So I was more just thinking through what you're sharing and trying to understand, how it, like, does it stand, trying to think of a fancy metaphor to say, like, does it, like, does it hold snuff? Is that one of the ways you could say, like, is it true?
That makes sense because it seems like a chicken and egg conversation. Obviously, if you're in a
Yeah.
couple or depending on your demographic, you're going to be around other couples statistically.
Mhm.
I wonder maybe a better response would be, I was thinking about this the other day. Kim and I were talking about this. So when somebody, let's say a friend of mine invites me out to an event, a birthday party, a hang, whatever, and I show up just myself, so often that person asks me, "Where's Nathan?" And I'm over here thinking, "You didn't specify the both of us. Maybe you just wanted to hang out with me." I think in that sense, there is an assumption that because I'm in a relationship and because I'm married, I am a package deal.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm over here thinking, "Oh, I don't know, maybe you just wanted some one-on-one time."
Which is so real as like in the early stages of relationship, especially in relationships leading to marriage, when there's like an intensity of connection, a lot of people are like, we are a unit and we're going doing everything together all the time. And so the flip side of this is your friends maybe being like, can we just you and me hang out? Because like I like the other guy, but you are my friend. Can
Yeah.
we just do that? And there's a lot. I mean, there's a real like as you get into a relationship, as you have kids, there's a loss of your old relationship ways and behaviors, and you have to like literally create new paths for things. And so my assumption is that as people get into like couple patterns, that they forget that they're used to be just for them as individuals, individual habits and patterns of like how they related to people. And so if there's a collective forgetting of that among the couples, then it's just a lot easier to like couple hang out. And that's like the way we're doing this. This is just like what I see. This is what we're doing. Then are either single or like people who are practicing different styles of relationships, relationship anarchy, where like you can be in relationships, you just don't identify as like either the binary of single or coupled. You have a relationship. Your primary relationship is with yourself. You forget how to, the coupled groups sort of forget how to bring those in. Like, what are those pathways? And then I think it's hard to like meld the groups. Yeah.
I think part of the reason that I'm having trouble wrapping my head around is this isn't necessarily true for my friend group or for and like the people that yeah, for the people that Steph and I socialize with, I think. And I think part of it is because of our relationship and the way I guess the norms, the I think of culture as just like the way we do things around here, right? That's in a friend group, a company, whatever culture is that. It's the norms. Um, Steph and I have a norm where we often don't participate in what the other person is doing. I go mountain biking. I like to mountain bike really fast. Steph doesn't like to mountain bike really fast. I end up mountain biking with a bunch of dudes who also mountain bike really fast. And sometimes gals join us, sometimes their significant others join us because, you know, they like to go fast. Um, but that becomes a thing that I show up to on my own, even though I've been in a relationship with Steph for 10 years. And that's always just been okay. I think there's a need for us to spend time together doing other things because by default, that kind of a situation isn't going to be an opportunity for a shared experience. And then I'm also remembering, Jordan, your story reminded me when Steph and I first started dating, she also started getting involved with this group of people who go to a music festival. And that group of people is really tight. They do all the things together. And this music festival is kind of like this big yearly shared experience that they all have. And for a long time, I didn't want to go to that music festival. For like 3 or 4 years, Steph would go and I wouldn't go. And every year she would come back and she would explain how difficult and sad it was for her to be there with all of these other couples
Huh.
by herself and to have everybody go, "Where's Pancho? Why isn't Pancho here?" You know? And so for her, it was just like difficult. I am part of this group, but I'm not like them because my person didn't come. But for me, I had no interest in going. I was angry, like of this expectation put on me through staff by other people about going to a thing that I never signed up for.
Totally.
Do you think she
Oh,
would have
yeah.
had a better time if the people there weren't always applying that pressure or asking those questions about where you were?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was a big part
Yeah.
of the reason that, it like held it up to her in a way that she couldn't. There was a social pressure. It was held up to her as like, here's an expectation we have is that you bring your person and your person's not here. And from them, it was really well intentioned.
Hmm.
We want to get to know him better. We want to include you as a couple. But the way it landed wasn't that.
I think that's what I really struggle with is like the expectation and the assumption that your partner has to be involved in all areas of your life. And I
Uh,
don't really know why that is. I do believe there's this underlying belief that a person can't be truly fulfilled or feel truly happy unless they are in a relationship with someone. And so it's a little bit shocking to another person when like your partner isn't there. I I have to share this story because it makes me laugh. So speaking of this Iceland trip, this was a bucket list item for me. Nathan knew I always wanted to do a solo trip. So he was very supportive. I had it planned and it was incredible. I absolutely loved it. I'm also a person that's very comfortable like being alone and I like my alone time. So it was beautiful. But while I'm there, I'm meeting all these cool and interesting people and I always talk about Nathan. So I'm out here saying, "Oh, my husband Nathan." And the response was, "Well, where is he?" And I would say, "Well, he wasn't invited."
But
Which either people thought was really funny or they got very confused. I thought it was hilarious.
yeah, but he wasn't because it
He
was a solo
wasn't.
trip. Yeah. And he
Yeah, it
was,
was my
I
trip.
assume, happy with that.
Oh, yeah. He was totally supportive. He ended up doing his own trip with one of his closest friends. They spent a weekend in Vegas. They went to the Sphere. He had a great time.
I wanna bring us into like the conversation around marriage because I think one of the sort of big elephants in the room is pink elephant, 800-pound gorilla, whatever it is the like functionally what we're talking about is it's not just prioritizing a relationship, it's also prioritizing the institution, for good reasons around that. Before I do, because that's just the teaser, I have to say that Pancho, when you're telling your story about like why why am I roped into this? Like this isn't what? Um, one of the funny things about so being queer, one of the ways in which this shows up in sort of like a very odd twist on it of like, we don't know what to do with you people
yeah.
is like, how do I treat you as an individual, as a couple, what's happening here? Baby showers when you're a lesbian. So do you get the spouse privilege of being able to opt out of that shit? You don't. They invite both of you. So and so it was always me who was the like family or but I remember many, many times Eliza being like, why are they inviting me? I don't want to go. None of the other husbands have to go. Why do I have to go? And being like, they don't know what to do with us.
That's hilarious.
This happens a lot. Yeah. Like your two aren't, but same, different. What?
Okay, so I'm gonna. This is because I'm pretty sure this is because I'm a guy.
Okay.
What's the expectation? And
Pretty
because I
sure.
don't have kids.
Yeah.
What's the expectation on the husband, the man, the male identifying individual in the relationship in regard to the baby shower? Because I don't even know what it is. Are you supposed to show up? Do you not go?
Oh god. I hate this topic so much.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out how it's different from
I know.
lesbians,
I
you know?
understand. I understand. People can blow up. We're gonna have like this is gonna be our version, Jordan, of your comments.
I'm ready.
Let's go viral. Let's do it.
Like, why? Why do we do this? It takes a whole village to raise the children. Why are we only like gender of just the gender thing? So like, there's a thing called what is it called? Forget the name. I'm a little out of the game, but there's some word for it when like there's a special word. It's like it's that kind of baby shower where the partner spouses, the men, are invited. But it's just like sad men in a corner. It doesn't make it better. I forget what it's called. So like people do it all kinds of ways. Like they have a party and just like you can bring gifts, but it's just like a regular party or whatever. So the expectation is generally it's like the matriarchs of the family like caring for this new mom to be and being like, here's the wisdom. Like there's a real like lineage of this of like pass it on and like this is what we want to pass on to you. In modern times, it doesn't work like that. It's Pinterested up and all kinds of things. It can be really lovely. But generally for many people, some people, it can be like, I don't know, watching paint dry. I mean, like the most tedious, especially if there's like a lot of gift opening, like one by one. It's, I don't know. I don't mean to yuck a bunch of yums out there for people who really enjoy baby shower gift opening, but it's not for me.
I wonder, this is making me think, I don't have experience with having a baby shower, and haven't actually been to that many. The purpose of a baby shower is that I feel like any big celebration, it's not just about that person you're celebrating, but you're also doing it for the collective. My brain is also tying this to marriage because when Nathan and I got married, we chose a courthouse because we felt like we didn't want to spend a bunch of money on a big wedding to host a party for a bunch of other people that weren't really going to be that involved in our lives.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But like that's the point is like it is the whole community. Why are we limiting it to just one gender? Like it is a community thing. Bring the community, make it a community thing. Raise this child together. Why are we already explicitly limiting it to just like these are the people who do the emotional labor? So anyway, I can go on. The point of that story was just that like in the context of individual versus couple, it just wires get really crossed in this one in my life.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get back on track. Took the the lesbian baby shower detour here. Coming
Saw
back
the sights back on the highway.
Appreciate Pancho's. This is our lane. We're gonna stay here now.
Well, Kim, you brought up the topic of of weddings and marriage, and I think you were taking us somewhere. So
because my sense of this whole topic of like privileging the couple over the individual is the manifestation of we as a society feel collectively safer when people are paired up with each other because there are all these institutions, and then we can go into like how we like subsidize married people and like we can go down that path. Like there's a lot of economic advantages and legal protections and all kinds of things that you acquire through marriage, estates and just like inheritance and how the institution itself has become a very for people who feel like they are it can be a socioeconomic issue for sure, like who's getting married and then who ends up benefiting from marriage too. So anyway, when I hear the like privileging the couple or the relationship over the individual, I also hear that we privilege or we prefer the way it's been done, the way it's set up, the way that we have said in our laws, in our culture, in our habits, but really like a lot in our laws, that this is the way we're supposed to do it. And so everything sort of sets up around that. And then you run into the like childless by choice is another idea, but like in this case, the single, sometimes by choice. We assume, so we take all these like society set up for this, for couples to do well. And so we then extrapolate to the single people must be sad. There must be a problem. They must be searching. They must be seeking. We need to help them. Or like sad people. And so then we treat them that way. It's true. And so I will say, like, I think I am 5 years old, 5 to 10 years older than you guys. I'm 40. How old are you guys?
33.
I forget. I'm either 37 or 38, but I lose track.
I forget. I'm gonna start using
I
that.
think my milieu is lots of married couples. There's also lots of separating and divorced couples and people. And there is a real expectation that people are like, so when are you going to start dating now? When are you going to do that again? When do you get back? And there's a like push into like, you're going to go back and do that thing again, right? And they're like, wow, sort of went through the ringer. Let me catch my breath. Maybe not. But like, we just assume that single is sad.
That single is sad. I have so many thoughts. I feel like what
Go.
you're describing is marriage as like a level of status to achieve, right? And if you don't have
Big
that
time.
status, you haven't made it, kind of thing. There's always a question behind why are you not married, which is judgy. And then the divorce piece, it's like, I don't know if you guys have experienced this with people in your lives, but when somebody gets divorced, it's met with like sadness or, oh, I'm so sorry. But what about the folks where it's going to sound bad, but like genuinely celebratory?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that touches on, oh my gosh, the idea that marriage is supposed to go forever, right? And the idea that when I was 18, my mom was very upset that I ended up with a serious high school girlfriend. Part of that was she didn't want me to get somebody pregnant before I went off to college. So, like, fair. That's a thing for a parent to be genuinely afraid about, especially in the town I grew up in. We had one of the highest teen pregnancy rates in the country. But the other thing she shared with me is the moment you enter into a serious relationship with somebody else, your own individual growth slows down because your identity ends up getting intertwined with the person that you're a part of. They become a big influence in who and how you are, in what your habits are, in how you spend your days. And I think to some degree that's true. If there's somebody who is your main conversational partner, their beliefs and the way that you think, especially if you really value them in relationship, they're gonna have an influence on you. Their sleep patterns, this is very true for me and it's painful. Their sleep patterns influence your sleep patterns. Like what they eat influences what you eat. So in some ways my mom was right, but on the flip side, it's also true that we don't stop changing.
Mhm.
And when we get married, there's almost like this implicit assumption that like we will always like and love each other as much as we do right now, which is why we're going to stay together forever. But people do change and people can grow apart to the degree that they're no longer compatible. Maybe they still love each other. Maybe they even still like each other. But they've grown in directions where there's just like deep incompatibilities in being the kind of person that they're willing to share their sleep patterns and refrigerator with. or that they're willing to, like build a life with from here on out. And so that leads me to wonder, like, what is, like in where we are today, and I'm curious, each of your answers, in the world that we live in today, if we were to throw away this concept that marriage is forever, and because people change, and if we were to replace it with something else, what is the point of getting married?
I was going to ask you that question, Pancho.
Well, I can answer
Yes.
later, but
Yes.
yeah.
That's great.
What's the point of getting married? And then also, what are the expectations that people should bring into a marriage?
Yeah. Jordan, you want to go? Your eyes went like saucers. They went very big. I'm curious what just happened there.
I think because so much of this speaks to my own personal story, because I also, for a long time, I didn't want marriage. That was never within my plans. I knew I wanted kids. I didn't know if I wanted marriage. It wasn't a priority. And it wasn't until Nathan and I started getting really serious, I had to really consider what this meant. And it wasn't until I realized that we could define marriage for ourselves that I actually felt comfortable with it. But my non-negotiable before marriage was, is this somebody who is willing to grow with me? Because I cannot stand here and make vows knowing that we will not be the same people in 10, 20 years. That's crazy. There's something else that totally just left my brain, but that was a big one.
Yeah. So you asked, like, why get married and what expectations do you bring into it?
Ooh. I mean, the growth one for sure is an expectation. The why get married is hard. And it's probably been something I've thought about more after marriage than I did before. I think there is an element of, this is somebody I get to do life with, and assuming you like that person, like, I hope that part's exciting. The other part I've learned much more recently, that is really the growth piece. I think there is an element of growth that comes with a long-term commitment that you don't necessarily get in other relationships, because you are forced to look in the mirror with an intimate partner over time, and it challenges you a lot. So I do think that there's an opportunity there that can be really special and really powerful that I myself am still working through.
Mm-hmm.
So
Popcorn
I'm
Kim.
not. I'm not. I'm just to like touch on that one because I
Yeah.
think that's huge. That's not necessarily exclusive to people who are married.
True.
That would just be for anybody who's willing to, stay coupled long enough to get to that kind of dynamic.
That's a good point. Then I don't know what the actual purpose of like the marriage as an institution would be. And again, I will piss some people off here because I like to joke that our marriage is semi-permanent, because I can't 100% tell you that we will make it. I hope that we do, and that is the goal, but I can't say like with 100% confidence that that's what's going to happen. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. I mean, we're big fans of it. You can't really say much with 100% confidence.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah. Kim, what about you?
Yeah, I have so many thoughts on that.
Yeah.
What a great question.
Let's get it.
So the other question I was going to ask for the group is like, there's a reason these rules, habits, cultural patterns of privileging relationship exist. Like, there are some real positives to this, and like that's sort of what I want to bring into the answer to this question is like, yeah, on paper, there's lots you can do without a certificate, without like the legal blessing, and the the cultural act and the religious act, to the extent you're involving religion in it, and the legal act, up the ante in a way that I really do think that like Jordan, what you said is it changes you. When you do that in front of people and there's some legal binding behind it, the way you show up changes. The like it's similar to like you put some skin in the game, you put some money down, like I don't know. When you invest in something like that, you it changes how you show up. It's sort of what is that scientific principle of like Schrodinger's cat where no, it's not it. It's the one where you like can't measure the thing because while observing it, it changes.
The uncertainty principle, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle.
Definitely not the cat one.
Yeah, Schrodinger's cat
It's
is either dead or
Heisenberg's
alive,
uncertainty
but you don't know. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's that idea. It's the cat changes. I don't know. Anyway, it's when you can't really like compare the counterfactual because I mean, my experience has been, and what I see in other people too, is like when you sign up for this kind of commitment, the way you show up changes. You show up with more like, it's not a like, well, people can feel however they want to feel, but it's not a pinned against the wall. It's not a trapped. It's not a like, well, like I'm stuck here, so I might as well make the best of it. It's a like, I gotta dig deeper than I ever thought possible. I thought I found the floor. There's more below this because I want this to work and I don't yet have the skills, awareness to make it work. And like, maybe there's more. And so this only works if you're willing to grow with each other because like, it's just like having kids. You change in ways that you can't predict. And it's like a lot messier and harder and more beautiful than you can ever imagine. But you literally can't imagine it. You can't prepare for it. You can't be like, my limit to growth will be this, like, cause it's all organic. And I will say there's this, just to like bring in the non-monogamy and other patterns of relating, there was this really interesting quote by, no, I like it's the cat versus the Heisenberg thing. It's either Joan Baez or Joni Mitchell or neither of them. And but somebody who you'd be like, wow, she was probably like sleeping with a lot of people all the time was like, yeah, monogamy is so much more growth oriented than non-monogamy because it forces you. And she was like, you can have relationships with all kinds of people. You'll grow in each of them. There is really nothing like the growth that comes from having 17 different marriages with the same person over a lifetime and having to be like, okay, what do we do now? How do we do this? How do we approach this? And like, you can, the way she was saying it was, in non-monogamy, you just bring your baggage to the new relationships and maybe you work on it or maybe you don't. And you just do the same thing over and over again. But that doesn't cut it in a full, commit to a lifetime or commit to however long it ends up being. You show up different when you know, like, this is the commitment. Pros and cons, right? Like, then if you are not showing up for growth or you are showing up and just like, I don't want to rock the boat, I'm just going to make this work. It doesn't lead to that kind of growth. So like that's only possible if you take advantage of it. If you deterministically and decidedly together take advantage of it. And that doesn't happen often, I think. And I think that's why we get this like monogamy is just, or like marriage, or it's, these institutions get this bad rap, among other reasons, but of being like, I don't know, where things go to just get boring. Because it can support both models.
Yeah.
I don't think we like talk about it or necessarily educate. I think there's more out there these days on what this growth you're talking about really looks like. And Kim, you introduced me to someone that's been really helpful with this and I know has helped Nathan and I a lot. I do think like there's this it's the happily ever after, right? Like I think sometimes people want a wedding, but not necessarily a marriage. Like it's the thing that you're expected to do. Or something that's always really bothered me is that trope of, the old ball and chain. Like every movie, every
Gross.
sitcom, it's like this couple that's been married for years and they just have this toxic dynamic and, yes, honey, no one's happy. And I hate that. I hate it so much.
Yeah. Is that the Jason Gaddis Getting to Zero book?
Yes.
I
Yep.
love that book. Like, I recommend that to people who are like in the corporate world. How do I deal with conflict? And I was like, read this marriage book.
Right?
Yeah,
Phenomenal.
he knows what he's talking about.
If you were to summarize it in a few sentences, because I have not heard of the book, what's the premise?
It's how to fight well. It's how to fight well and like save your soul in the process and not be an asshole. Get to like, it's how to listen. It's how to like, I mean, it is like step by step how to do conflict in your most meaningful relationships when things are really tight and tense and they mean a lot to both of you, and how to like know when you're flooded and what to do and just like how to get under the questions a bit. But I think about this stuff all the time, and not in my romantic relationships, like in my like peer-to-peer relationships or my boss relationships at work. So
Relationships. Can I
yeah.
jump a little bit? I have a question that's popping into my head around if relationships tend to be more valued, do you find that people like enter into, we're talking about like the purpose of marriage and why get married. Do you find that people, they jump into it because there's a belief that that's the thing that's going to make them happy without actually considering the reality of what marriage will look like? And I'm wondering if that's part of the problem.
I also like so like we're gonna turn this to Pancho. You get to answer that question because I want to know, you were wrestling with like why get married, and then you did get married. So can you answer both of those questions at once?
Simultaneously, two different talk tracks. Um, do people go for marriage just because they think it's going to bring status, happiness, and basically a rival fallacy?
Mm.
A rival fallacy, and like the judgmental part of my brain's like Disney princess story. Like I think there's a lot there as well, and that's a gendered kind of stereotype, but I think it applies across the board. Like we all have our little Disney happily ever after fantasy of what it's going to look like. So is there that? And then also, what is the point of marriage? Um, yeah, I mean, I grew up thinking like I'm gonna be a dad and I'm gonna get married, and like my life is gonna, like, a happy life is gonna look like most of the people that I see around me as a child, and that is you're married, as Noelle said in our last episode, like married, 2.5 kids, 2 cars, white picket fence, house in suburbia, you pay your taxes. And as I got older, I realized that didn't sound very fun. Um, at least, when I actually, like you said, Jordan, when I actually started thinking into the reality of what it would look like to live that day in and day out for the rest of my life, or at least for a 20-year commitment until, the kids leave. So I started asking questions like, what's the point of getting married? Steph and I had been together for about 7 years when, maybe like 6 years, when we started wrestling with the question of like, are we going to have kids? And that was a long 2.5, 3 year back and forth conversation that led to some really low lows, and then, to a lot of introspection for both of us. And then the next question was, okay, well, we kind of figured out that whatever a relationship is and whatever it's becoming, we want to stay together. Even if we're not 100% on having kids on the same page, we understand each other well enough and we understand each other's wants well enough to move forward and see what happens. We want this relationship enough to at least take that step. And so then the next question, and both of our moms were bringing this question to the table regularly, is like, when is marriage going to happen? And it wasn't a gross like, when are you going to do it, putting pressure on me kind of a thing. There are some moms out there that do that, but it was more of just kind of like them sitting back watching, like, okay, when's it going to happen? And I could just feel that at Thanksgiving or whatever. And so we both went off and did a lot of soul searching in terms of like, what is the point of getting married? Because the point of getting married is no longer to trade cows and land. The point of getting married is no longer like, here, I will trade you my daughter for, whatever the other worldly possessions you've got, and I'll give you 2,000 gold alongside, taking her into your house. So women are no longer traded like cattle, and marriage doesn't work that way anymore. And, like preserving hierarchies is no longer a thing in the way that it used to be. Um, and it took me a while to figure out, like, well, what's the point? And I came up with a few different reasons. Number one reason is the world knows what to do with you when you conform to something that it's familiar with. If you're like, this is my
Yes.
girlfriend of 25 years, people look at you like, what does that mean? No? Jordan, in the same way that you were saying, like, I didn't like to call my husband my boyfriend as adults because it has a younger connotation to it. When you're like 55 and you're like, that's my girlfriend, what does that mean? So the world doesn't know what to do with you. And in some sense, it's easier for people to understand the dynamics of our relationship when we got to the point where we're just like, that's my wife. Okay, I know what that means generally, right? Two, all of the legalities. The one that was most important to us was privilege of attorney. So if I end up in the hospital unconscious, Steph gets to call the shots. If we're not married, that's not true. The third one is we get to throw a big party for all our friends.
Beautiful.
And there's this, and we get to lean into the cultural and social pressures of they got to show up. Most of the time people are like, no, I don't want to travel 8 hours to go to an entire weekend's worth of fun because it's an 8-hour fucking drive. But when you tell them it's a wedding, they're like, fuck, okay, we got to go. And they'll plan their entire schedule around it, right? So it's like the one time in our lives where we get to throw this huge party, and we really leaned into this huge party for the people in our lives that we really love, and most of them are going to be there. And so that was honestly a really big part of it. It's like, let's just throw a big party. Let's have a lot of fun with a lot of people we love. And the fourth one was, you brought it up already, Kim. There is a certain importance to maintaining ritual in our lives.
Yeah.
There are rituals that we've had as a human species for millennia, and they carry value. And so maintaining a ritual, there's something there. And I think for us, that leads into what you were talking about in terms of like, okay, a lot of our day-to-day relationship dynamics haven't changed, but the feeling of being married and what that means because of the ritual is different from just, having been together for 10 years without that ritual and without that context. So those are our reasons for getting married. And we did it full well knowing that if we did it legally, we were inviting the government into our relationship, and the government would treat our relationship as a business agreement. And we think that's super fucked up. But it unlocks the hospital scenario. So it's kind of it was a calculated decision. In terms of, do people go for marriage because of the status or, kind of like the cultural norms? I think that's probably true. I think there are a lot of people who are just like, that's what you do. That's what I was told I got to do. I got to go out and get a job. And then I got to find a person, and then we got to partner up, and then we got to get married, and then we got to buy a house, and then we got to start pumping out kids. And that's what life is supposed to look like. And they feel really uncomfortable if they I don't think that there's falling behind, I think, is not a real thing. Like, you can't fall behind. You're falling behind according to what? right? But I think there is a sense of like, I'm falling behind, I'm getting left behind by my peers. I'm not, I'm not on track with what I expected for my life if they're not partnered up and getting married by a certain point in their lives.
Yeah, those are great reasons, by the way. And like, not to underestimate the party, the legal stuff, but also truly, I know we talked about this with Noelle, but the value of ritual and like
Absolutely.
cultural continuity. And I don't know, like I really do want to, as much as sort of the frame of this is like, it's really annoying that you can't just be celebrated as your individual self in the same way that society celebrates coupledom and like pushes you in the stream of things towards relationship, towards the atomic family unit. Is that right? Anyway, whatever it is. Nuclear families.
Oh, I know what you meant.
It's
Maybe.
gonna be the bloopers of this episode are gonna be awesome. Anyway, we talked about with Noelle the value of ritual for a human going from like really like dark night of the soul into like, okay, I'm landing, I'm moving into like a better place for myself. Their own individual ritual, but also the cultural continuity of the good stuff that like in community and connection that come through ritual. And so as much as we are sort of framing this of like, this doesn't feel great that I can't just be an individual and be celebrated for that, I'm acknowledging also like, and it's balanced against the reasons why it exists in the first place. Like, why does this tension exist? Because there's some benefit to it. The duality. Yeah, Jordan.
And I'd also argue that the people involved still need to define that ritual for themselves, if that makes sense. Because I love this idea of throwing a party. We threw a party, but it was a little bit different. We booked an Airbnb in Temecula, and we had like 10 of our closest people come out, and we just did a weekend, and it was fabulous. We had like a framework for the whole weekend, no phones. It was just, this is our celebration. But I remember when we were planning it, we really sat down and we had to consider, what do we actually want to celebrate? Because we knew we didn't want a traditional wedding. I don't like being the center of attention. I don't want to be surrounded by a big group of people. Like, I'm an introvert, okay? It's too much. Nathan had already had a wedding before. We really wanted the weekend to be around, or to be centered around just our closest people that love us, that we knew we were going to be leaning on, for years to come, and like have that kind of intimate celebration. So I like this idea of ritual. I also think that it needs to be seriously considered and not just, oh, this is the ritual that we're supposed to do because it's a wedding and we have to do it like this. And I think a lot more people are doing that nowadays. They're choosing how they want to go about holding that ritual. But if it's not considered, I think that's where people get in trouble.
Without going into all of the details of how we did our wedding, it was 100% about community. We did it as little to center ourselves as possible. And I mean, I fucking hate consumerism. And the wedding industry is a massive force for consumerism, right? Like, I always think about in Fight Club, the idea of single serving things. They're sitting on the airplane and they're talking about, single serving friends, single serving food packages, single serving and so a wedding is an entire single serving, like 5 to 6 figure price tag event. And we did as much as we could to remove those elements. Like, we didn't pay for a lot of the fancy stuff that people pay for in a wedding. We paid for the things that we thought were really important to have an experience, to have the party we wanted to have for our friends. We threw it at a summer camp and people were like dirty all weekend long.
Oh,
and
so
like
fun.
they were like mountain biking and going swimming in water holes, and there wasn't reception on the wedding grounds. People were there for 3 days straight at a summer camp, and they couldn't connect with the outside world unless they drove off premises. And um, so yeah, I think I totally agree. I think you really, it's important to have that ritual be meaningful. It's important to have it be a ritual that aligns with what's important to you and how you bring your community in to support your relationship.
Yeah. This will, Jordan, you gonna say something?
No, I was just saying intentional. I love that.
Yeah. There's also like just thinking about age. There is a real benefit, as we're talking about this, to getting married at the ages y'all got married at. Because I came from the wedding factory of Central New Jersey. Like I went to like 4 wedding bridal what are they called? Bachelor parties in Atlantic City. Like that was my life in the early 2000s. Is like a lot of bachelor parties in Atlantic City for my cousins. Like this was all 10 of the cousins were the bridesmaids, like for all the weddings. And like we're just going through all the like it was not formulaic, but like it had the same feel, each one of them. Um, and they were beautiful and fun, and I had a blast at all of them, except it was really confusing for me as somebody who is gay. Like trying to make sense of that and like why am I doing I know like legally why I'm doing this. The like the hospital thing was huge. And just like if we had kids and just all kinds of stuff. But to we didn't necessarily we tried hard. We were 24. Yeah, we're really young. Tried hard to figure out how to make this our own, but also we're trying to do the like, how are we going to get the grandparents to understand? Like they're just wrapping their heads around like there's 2 women up there. We got to get some of the things that they're familiar with in this scene, and also, I mean, like there is a brilliant. Some would call it brilliant. Some would call it diabolical, but many people have brilliant strategy to help people see and understand gay people through marriage. Like marriage was the tip of the cultural change sphere in the 2004, 2008, 2012 cycles. And it was all about assimilating. It was like, there's nothing different here. It's the same consumerism, just the same gender. All the same gender. And I think as much as we were both like, I hate this. I hate everything about this. We were like, got to do the thing. So they like the gay people. That was a big part of it. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? How different it is now?
Totally.
By the way, we tried really, really hard to like, it looked like it was a backyard wedding, looked like a wedding. We had this minister that we got and like did prep to come and like marry us. But we didn't really think it through that well and weren't like, I think we found her through some like queer alliance thing in New Jersey. We didn't really think it through and be like, what are you gonna wear? Because like she's a minister, she's gonna wear white. So we're trying to keep this super chill. But she shows up with a new haircut, and it is like butch tight haircut and a rainbow stole.
Yes.
And we were like, oh man. Okay. Hello. My grandmother was a Catholic school teacher for 50 years. And my other grandmother was in the Hungarian, which is like, we are so Catholic. We are so Catholic. Like, this is all we knew was Perth Amboy, New Jersey, Hungarian Catholic, like living. And rainbow stole. The military cut shows
Amazing.
up to marry the granddaughter to a woman. Anyway, gotta keep it colorful. So we are coming up right on our hour of recording. What are some parting thoughts we have not shared with our audience yet about this topic? Relationships, individuals, the role of relationships, the role of individuals. What hasn't been said yet? I don't know.
Got one. Earlier, Kim, you mentioned you used the word couples privilege. The words couple, term couples privilege, and I don't know if that's a thing, but I do know that the word privilege is a loaded word in our society, right? And like there are a lot of people who get their hackles up whenever you start talking to them about their privilege. Um, so if you and then I think you said you used a different word, but to take the teeth out of it, to just make it, I don't even know where I would want to go with the conversation other than like encouraging the listeners to put that aside and see if there's actually a there there. If there is some sort of privilege. And if there's not, then whatever. Like in my life, I don't know that I see it. But maybe that's because I'm fiercely individualistic in my relationship dynamics. And so I don't look for or appreciate that privilege if it's there. But to look beyond the word privilege and to actually look for the meat of the thing in one's life and to reflect on whether that is true for whoever's listening. Yeah, I think maybe that's the takeaway.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I don't know, sort of neutral definition of privilege in the way I use it is, are there benefits that aren't necessarily earned, but are not noticed or appreciated? Or benefits that are earned, but just aren't noticed or appreciated, where you're like, you sort of take things for granted, the benefits you take for granted of like, oh, life is easier. And I didn't really put that together because I have this other person, like holidays, spending time with family, like just being guess what, like it's so much easier to cook for two than to for one. I mean, it gets down to that level of like, there's just life is easier logistically with two in many cases than one. And you can make the case that it's the other side too, but it's the ways in which we just sort of forget the benefits that accrue. But then there's the legal parts of it too. Speaking of like accruing.
It does make me wonder, is it easier because it's actually easier, or it's easier because that's how most of our systems are built? Like I think there is a norm and an expectation to be in a relationship. And so a lot of things are kind of centered around, are you in a couple? When are you getting married? Who are you dating? And so it does make me wonder, like, I mean, I'm somebody that will easily go to a concert by myself, right? But I realize that's not the norm for most people. So again, is it easier to go with somebody because like that's what's expected or it's the norm, or is it actually easier? I don't know.
I don't know either. I would assume both because you've got like assumptions, cultural patterns. It depends on what you said about like people don't really understand the 25-year girlfriend boyfriend relationship. They also don't understand like happy single, good by myself all the time as a thing. And we sort of alluded to the childless by choice, but it's the same idea of like people don't really understand, or the single parent by choice. What? How is that? You good? You're good with this. You chose this. Okay. And then being when those folks do have like when single people, childless by choice or single parent by choice, have struggles related to their choices, people are like, you chose this. That's your problem. And you're like, well, you chose your life too. Are you always 100% happy all the time? No. Shut up. We deserve to feel in community and connected and cared for by a community, no matter what, if we are making choices that are authentic and to ourselves and don't materially cause harm to other people. So anyway, I can go on about that, but I think the privilege thing is like, yeah, just notice where are you benefiting from being paired? Where's life easier than if you were single in this situation? What would that feel like? Cool. Jordan, any final thoughts from you as we wrap?
I don't think so.
I'm good. We squeeze the line.
Over here enjoying my coupledom.
Yeah, totally. I can't wait to ride the coattails of your viral post and have this thing go viral too. We'll just
Oh, boy.
shoot along with you.
Yeah,
Oh,
please
boy.
read those comments. It's
I can't wait.
fantastic.
We should link to that post in the show notes.
That'd be fun.
All right, friends, this is glorious. Thank you. Thank you for being here. It was lovely.
Thank you, Beth.
All right. Adios.